3 weeks passed, and Danny's shop became something no one had expected. It was not just a repair garage anymore. It was a hospital, a workshop, and a gathering place all at once. People came and went at all hours, bringing supplies, offering skills, asking questions. The dragon behind the mechanic's shop had become the colony's most famous resident. The first real success came on a cold morning when Danny and Grace finally attached a new leg. It had taken countless hours of work. Danny had built the main structure from mining equipment, using heavy hydraulic pistons for strength and flexible joints for movement. Grace had wired the control systems, connecting them carefully to the nerve pathways that Vethra still possessed. Ben Hartley had managed her pain throughout the process, using a combination of human medicines and careful observation. When Vethra stood up on all 4 legs for the first time in decades, everyone held their breath. The new leg was bulkier than her original limbs, made of dark metal instead of silver scales, but it moved when she wanted it to move. It supported her weight without buckling. "It works," Vethra said, her voice filled with wonder. "It actually works." Danny sagged with relief. "I wasn't sure it would," he admitted. "I was maybe 60% confident." 60%? Grace asked, her eyes wide. "You let me help with something you were only 60% sure about." 70%, Danny corrected. "I was 70% confident by the end." Vethra laughed, a real laugh this time, a sound like rolling thunder that shook the windows of the shop. She had not laughed like that in centuries. It felt good. It felt alive, but the leg was only the beginning. Her wings came next. They were easier in some ways, since they did not need to support her weight, but they were also more delicate. Danny patched the tiers with lightweight alloy mesh, reinforcing the membrane without adding too much weight. Grace designed a support structure that helped the damaged sections maintain their shape. When they finished, Vethra spread her wings for the first time in years. She could not fly yet and might never fly again, but she could feel the wind against them. She could stretch them wide and feel like herself again. Word of what was happening spread beyond Verith 7. It traveled along trade routes and communication networks, passing from ship to ship and world to world. A human mechanic was fixing a dragon. It sounded like a legend, a story too strange to be true. But it was true, and soon the Dracaran Council heard about it. The message arrived at dawn, transmitted directly to Vethra through frequencies that only her kind could receive. Danny did not know what was said, but he saw the effect it had on her. She grew still and quiet, her golden eyes dimming with something that looked like grief. "They have exiled me," she said finally. "I am no longer Dracaran. I am no longer welcome among my own kind. If I ever return to our worlds, I will be killed." Molly rushed to her side. "Vethra, I'm so sorry." "Do not be sorry," Vethra said, though her voice was heavy. "I knew this would happen. I made my choice. I chose life over tradition, and my people cannot forgive that." Grace looked angry. "That's cruel. You're hundreds of years old. You've served your people your whole life, and they throw you away because you don't want to die." "They do not see it that way," Vethra explained. "To them, I have betrayed everything we stand for. I have become something impure, something wrong." She paused and looked down at her new leg, at the human metal that was now part of her body. "Perhaps they are right. Perhaps I am no longer truly Dracaran." Danny stepped forward. He was not good with words, but he knew what needed to be said. "You're Vethra," he said simply. "That hasn't changed. What's on the outside doesn't matter as much as what's on the inside. And on the inside, you're still you." Vethra looked at him for a long moment. Then she lowered her head, bringing her face close to his. "You are a good man, Danny Cole. Your people should be proud of you." "My people barely know I exist," Danny said with a shrug. "But that's okay. I don't do this for them. The work continued. The leg and the wings had been important, but they were not enough. The real problem was Vethra's power core, the ancient mechanism in her chest that functioned like a heart. It was failing, slowly but surely, and when it stopped, she would die. Danny studied it for days. He scanned it with every tool he had. He consulted with Grace and Ben and anyone else who might have useful knowledge. The core was incredibly advanced, a fusion of technologies that no human could replicate. It generated power from sources that Danny did not fully understand, and it had been running for nearly 800 years. I can't fix it, he admitted one evening. I don't even know how it works. If I try to repair it, I'll probably break it completely. Then what do we do? Molly asked. Danny was quiet for a moment, thinking. Then he looked at Grace. What if we don't fix it? He said, what if we replace it? Grace's eyes went wide. Replace a Dracaran power core? With what? A fusion reactor, Danny said. A human one. Small enough to fit inside her chest. Powerful enough to run her systems. That's insane, Grace said. We can't build something like that here. We don't have the facilities, the materials, the expertise. We have a fusion reactor at the power plant, Danny pointed out. You know how it works better than anyone. And I've seen the old survey reports for this plant. There's a deposit of heavy elements about 50 kilometers north. We could mine what we need. Grace stared at him. You're serious? I'm always serious when it comes to keeping people alive, Danny said. They brought the idea to Vethra. She listened carefully, asking questions about the technology, the risks, the chances of success. Danny was honest with her. He told her that he did not know if it would work. He told her that the surgery would be dangerous. He told her that she might die on the table. Vethra nodded slowly. I understand, she said. I appreciate your honesty. Many would have promised success to make me feel better. I don't make promises I can't keep, Danny said. Vethra looked at him, at Molly, at Grace, at Ben, at all the humans who had gathered to help her. These small, fragile creatures who had taken her in when her own kind had cast her out. These beings who asked for nothing in return. Let us do this, she said. Let us build me a human heart. And so they began the most ambitious project any of them had ever attempted. A frontier mechanic, a power plant engineer, a retired doctor, and a handful of colonists working together to save an ancient dragon's life thought it was impossible. It was foolish. It was exactly the kind of thing humans were known for. And maybe, just maybe, it would work. 1 year passed, and Vara 7 was no longer just a frontier colony. It had become something else, something that no one had planned but everyone had helped create. People across the sector knew its name now, not because of its farms or its mines, but because of what had happened there. The story of the dragon and the mechanic had spread far and wide. Vethra had become part of the community. She spent her days helping where she could, using her strength to move heavy equipment, her fire breath to clear land, her wisdom to advise the colony council. The children of Vareth 7 had lost their fear of her within weeks. They climbed on her back and asked her to tell them stories. She always obliged. She had 8 centuries of stories to tell, and for the first time, she had someone who wanted to hear them. But the biggest change came from beyond the colony. The first one arrived 3 months after Vethra's surgery. His name was Theron, and he was even older than Vethra, over 1,000 years. His wings were completely useless, fused to his body by centuries of neglect. His power core was failing just as Vethra's had been. He had heard the story, he said. He had heard about the humans who fixed dragons, and he had come to see if it was true. Danny fixed him. It took longer than Vethra's repairs, because Theron's damage was more severe, but the result was the same. A new leg, new wing supports, a human fusion reactor humming in his ancient chest. When Theron stood upright for the first time in centuries, he wept. Dragons could cry, it turned out. Their tears were silver, like liquid metal, and they fell like rain. More came after Theron. Some were old, their bodies failing after countless years. Others were young but injured, damaged in accidents or conflicts that their own kind could not or would not repair. They came from across the galaxy, following rumors and whispers. Hoping to find the truth behind the legend, Grace opened a clinic. It was a strange thing, a medical facility designed for beings dozens of times larger than humans, but she made it work. She trained others to do what she did, teaching them the techniques that she and Danny had developed together. The clinic grew, and so did its reputation. The Dracaran Council did not approve. They sent messages condemning what was happening on Verith 7. They declared every dragon who sought human help to be in exile, cut off from their kind forever. But their condemnation only made more dragons curious. If the council was so angry, some reasoned, then the humans must be doing something right. 1 year after Vethra's surgery, a formal delegation arrived from the council. 3 Dracaran in their prime, their scales gleaming, their eyes cold with disapproval. They landed outside the colony and demanded to speak with Vethra. She met them in the open, with Danny and Molly and Grace standing beside her. The colonists watched from a distance, tense and worried. No one knew what the delegation would do. "You have corrupted our kind," the leader of the delegation said, his voice harsh and accusing. "You have turned sacred beings into human machines. You have betrayed everything we stand for." Vethra did not flinch. "I have helped those who needed help," she said calmly. "I have given life to those who wish to live. If that is corruption, then I accept the title." "You must return with us," the leader demanded. "You must face judgment for your crimes." "No." The word hung in the air, simple and final. Vethra did not raise her voice. She did not threaten or argue. She simply refused. "I will not return," she continued. "And I will not stop what I am doing. Every dragon who wishes to live instead of dying in silence is welcome here. Every dragon who chooses hope over tradition has a place among these humans. You cannot stop that. You can only watch it grow." The delegation was silent for a long moment. Then, without another word, they turned and flew away, their wings carrying them back into the sky. They had come with authority, with the weight of millions of years of tradition behind them. They left with nothing, but they did not leave alone. 3 young dragons who had traveled with the delegation remained behind. They had seen the clinic. They had seen the healed dragons living peacefully among humans. They had heard Vethra's words, and something inside them had shifted. "We want to stay," one of them said, her voice uncertain but determined. "We want to learn." Vethra looked at them with something like joy in her ancient eyes. "Then you are welcome," she said. "All of you are welcome." That night, Danny sat with Vethra on the hill overlooking the colony. The stars were bright above them, and the lights of the settlement glowed warmly below. It had been a long year, full of challenges and triumphs and moments that Danny had never imagined possible. He was tired, but it was a good tired, the kind that came from doing something meaningful. "You know," Vethra said quietly, "the galaxy tells many stories about humans. Stories of warriors and conquerors. Stories of ambition and power. But this story will be different." Danny looked up at her. "What do you mean?" "This will be the gentle legend," she said. "The story of humans who healed instead of hurt, who welcomed instead of rejected, who looked at an old broken dragon and saw something worth saving." She turned her golden eyes toward him, and in them Danny saw something he had not expected. He saw gratitude, yes, but also something deeper. He saw love. Not romantic love, but the love of a friend, a companion, a family member. I have lived for almost 800 years, Vethra continued. I thought I understood the universe. I thought I knew what beings were capable of. But you showed me something new, Danny Cole. You showed me that kindness does not require a reason. It only requires a willing heart. Danny was quiet for a moment, thinking about her words. Then he shrugged, a small smile on his face. I just fixed what was broken, he said. That's what mechanics do. Vethra made that sound that was almost a laugh. Yes, she agreed. That is exactly what you do. And perhaps that is the most remarkable thing of all. You did not see saving a life as something extraordinary. You saw it as simply the right thing to do. Below them, the colony was settling into evening. Lights flickered in windows. Children were called home for dinner. Somewhere in the distance, a young dragon was learning to stretch her repaired wings. Guided by humans who had never seen a dragon before this year, the galaxy was vast and old and full of wonders. But here, on this small frontier world, something new was being born. A gentle legend. A story that would spread from star to star, carried by those who had witnessed it and those who had only heard of it. The story of a mechanic who fixed a dragon. Not because it was easy. Not because it was profitable. Not because anyone asked him to. But because she needed help, and he knew how to give it. And in the end, that was all any of them could do. See the need. Offer the help. Build something better, one repair at a time. Danny Cole went home that night and slept better than he had in months. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new patients, new problems to solve. But tonight, he could rest. He had done something good. And that was enough. Building a fusion reactor small enough to fit inside a dragon was not easy. Danny had known it would be difficult, but he had not understood just how difficult until they actually started. Every day brought new problems, new challenges, new moments when it seemed like the whole project would fail. Grace worked constantly, barely sleeping, designing and redesigning the core systems. She had spent years maintaining the colony's power plant, but building something from scratch was different. She had to miniaturize components that were never meant to be small. Find ways to generate enough power without producing dangerous levels of heat. And create control systems that would respond to Vethra's nervous system instead of manual switches. Danny handled the mechanical side. He built the housing for the reactor, a shell of reinforced alloy that would protect Vethra's organic tissues from radiation and heat. He designed the connections that would link the reactor to her existing systems, allowing power to flow through pathways that had been without energy for years. He tested everything over and over again, breaking things and fixing them, learning from every failure. The colony's governor, Claire Dawson, came to visit halfway through the project. She was a practical woman, more concerned with survival than sentiment, and Danny had expected her to object to the amount of resources they were using. Instead, she stood in silence for a long time, watching the work, watching Vethra, watching the team of humans who had come together for this impossible task. I've been governor of this colony for 12 years, she said finally. I've seen people do remarkable things. But this, she shook her head slowly. This is something different. Vethra raised her head to look at the governor. Even lying down, the dragon was enormous, her golden eyes level with Claire's face. You do not approve, Vethra said. It was not a question. I didn't say that, Claire replied. I'm just trying to understand. You're not human. You're not from this world. Most of these people had never seen a Dracaran before you arrived. Why are they working so hard to save you? Vethra was quiet for a moment. Then she spoke, her voice soft and thoughtful. I have lived for nearly 800 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species conquer and destroy and fade away. And in all that time, I have learned one truth. Kindness is the rarest thing in the universe. It is easy to be cruel. It is easy to be indifferent. But to look at someone who is different from you, someone who has nothing to offer you, and choose to help them anyway, that is something special. She turned her gaze to Danny, who was welding a section of the reactor housing. Your people do not help me because I am valuable. They help me because they cannot bear to watch me suffer. That is why they work so hard. That is why I trust them with my life. Claire was silent for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. All right, she said. What do you need? From that day forward, the colony's resources flowed more freely. Materials that had been scarce suddenly became available. Workers volunteered their time. The impossible project became a community effort, something that belonged to everyone on their Wrath-7.6 weeks after they started. The reactor was ready. It was beautiful in its own way. A sphere of polished metal about the size of a human torso, covered in cooling fins and power conduits. It hummed with contained energy, a miniature star trapped inside a shell of human engineering. Grace had outdone herself. The reactor was more efficient than anything she had built before, and it would run for decades without maintenance. The surgery was scheduled for dawn. Ben Hartley had prepared everything he could, but he was honest about his limitations. He was a doctor, not a surgeon, and he had never operated on anything larger than a human being. Danny would have to do most of the work, cutting into Vethra's chest, removing the failing core, and installing the new reactor in its place. The night before, Molly sat with Vethra under the stars. The dragon had not slept, and neither had Molly. They talked quietly, about small things, about memories and hopes and fears. Finally, as the sky began to lighten in the east, Vethra spoke the words she had been holding back. I am afraid, she admitted. Molly took her massive claw in both hands. That's okay, she said. Being afraid doesn't mean you're weak. It means you have something to lose. I have not had something to lose in a very long time, Vethra said. I had forgotten how it feels. When Danny came to begin the surgery, he found them still sitting together. He did not rush them. He simply sat down nearby and waited, giving them the time they needed. This was not just a mechanical procedure. This was a moment that would change everything. Finally, Vethra lifted her head. I am ready, she said. The surgery took 7 hours. Danny worked with steady hands, cutting through scales and tissue, navigating the strange combination of organic and mechanical systems that made up Vethra's body. Grace monitored the power levels, making sure the old core kept running until the very last moment. Ben managed Vethra's pain, keeping her conscious but comfortable, talking to her throughout the procedure. The hardest part was the transition. Danny had to disconnect the old core and connect the new reactor in a span of seconds, before Vethra's systems failed completely. He had practiced the procedure dozens of times on simulations, but nothing could truly prepare him for the reality. His hands moved faster than he thought possible, connecting conduits and sealing connections, watching the power levels drop, and then, finally, rise again. The new reactor hummed to life. Energy flowed through pathways that had been dark for years. Vethra's eyes, which had grown dim during the surgery, suddenly blazed with golden light, brighter than Danny had ever seen them. It worked, Grace whispered, staring at her instruments. Oh my God, it actually worked. Vethra did not speak at first. She simply lay there, feeling the new power flowing through her body, feeling the strength returning to her limbs. Then, slowly, she rose. She stood on all 4 legs, her new mechanical leg as steady as the others. She stretched her patched wings wide. She lifted her head toward the sky. I feel. She paused, searching for the right word. I feel young. Molly burst into tears. Danny sat down heavily on an overturned crate, suddenly exhausted. Grace laughed and hugged Ben, who looked just as surprised as everyone else that they had succeeded. Vethra turned to face them, These small humans who had given her something she had never expected to receive. A second chance. A new beginning. A life that she had chosen, not one that had been chosen for her. "Thank you," she said. The words were simple, but they carried the weight of 8 centuries. "I do not know how to repay you." Danny looked up at her, this ancient dragon with human metal in her chest and human technology keeping her alive. He smiled, the tired smile of a man who had just accomplished something impossible. "You don't have to repay us," he said. "That's not why we did it." Vethra lowered her head until her face was close to his. "I know," she said softly. "That is what makes it so remarkable." Outside, the sun rose over Vareth 7, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. It was a new day, and for the first time in a very long time, Vethra was certain she would see another one. The distress signal came through at 3 in the morning, ship time. Sergeant Daniel Cole was already awake when the alarm rang. He had been sitting in the mess hall, drinking cold coffee and thinking about home. Montana felt very far away out here in the black emptiness between stars. Sometimes he wondered if he would ever see those mountains again. "All hands to stations." Captain Laura Bennett's voice came through the speakers. "We have a distress call from an unknown vessel. Rescue team, prepare for possible boarding action." Danny set down his cup and moved. His body knew what to do even when his mind was still waking up. He grabbed his gear, checked his weapon, and met his team at the shuttle bay in under 4 minutes. Sophie Grant, the ship's chief medic, was already there with her medical kit. She was a small woman with steady hands and calm eyes. Danny had seen her work under fire before. She never panicked. "What do we know?" Danny asked. "Not much," Sophie said. "The signal is Etherin. That is all we have." Danny raised an eyebrow. The Etherins were one of the oldest species in the galaxy. They had been building cities in the stars when humans were still living in caves. They were proud, powerful, and they did not ask for help. If an Etherin ship was sending a distress call, something had gone very wrong. The shuttle launched 5 minutes later. Through the small window, Danny could see the damaged vessel drifting in the darkness. It was a beautiful ship, all smooth curves and silver metal, but now it was broken. Fires burned in several sections. Debris floated around it like a cloud of dead leaves, and circling the wreck like wolves around a wounded deer were 3 Varax raider ships. The Varax were insectoid creatures with hard shells and no mercy. They attacked, they killed, they took what they wanted. The galaxy feared them for good reason. "We have hostiles," the pilot announced. 3 Varax vessels. They are pulling back. I think our arrival surprised them. "Get us to that ship," Danny ordered. Now, the shuttle docked with the Etherin vessel through a breach in its hull. Danny led his team inside with weapons raised. The corridor was dark, lit only by emergency lights that flickered red. The air smelled like smoke and something else. Something metallic. Blood. They found the first bodies 20 meters in. Etherin guards, tall and elegant even in death, their silver-blue skin now pale and gray. They had fought hard. Danny counted at least a dozen dead Varax among them. "Keep moving," he said quietly. "There may be survivors." They searched room by room. Most of what they found was death. The Varax had been thorough in their attack. But then Sophie stopped at a doorway and made a small sound. "Sergeant." "In here." Danny stepped into what looked like a private chamber. Rich fabrics hung on the walls. Expensive items lay scattered on the floor. And in the center of the room, lying in a pool of her own blood, was a young Etherin woman. She was beautiful in a way that was hard to describe. Her skin was the color of a winter sky, and faint patterns of light moved beneath it like stars underwater. Her hair was long and white, spread around her head like a halo. Her eyes were closed, and there was a deep wound in her side. Where a Varak's blade had cut through her, Sophie rushed forward and knelt beside her. She's alive, but barely. She has lost too much blood. The blade hit an artery. Can you save her? Sophie's face was grim. Etherin blood is rare. It cannot be made artificially. Without a transfusion from another Etherin, she will die in minutes. Danny looked around the room. There were no other Etherins alive on this ship. They had checked every corridor. There has to be something we can do. Sophie was already working, her scanner moving over the wounded woman's body. Then she stopped. Her eyes went wide. Sergeant, this is going to sound crazy. Tell me, human blood and Etherin blood are not the same, but they are similar, more similar than they should be. The basic structures match in ways I have never seen between two species. She looked up at him. Your blood type specifically. You might be compatible enough for an emergency transfusion. Might be? I cannot be certain. It has never been done before. But without it, she dies in the next 3 minutes. Danny did not hesitate. He pulled off his jacket and rolled up his sleeve. Do it, Danny. I need to warn you. This will take a lot of blood. You will be weak. If we encounter more Varaks, do it, he said again. Sophie worked fast. She connected the tubes and needles with practiced skill. Danny watched his blood flow out of his arm and into the dying woman. He felt dizzy almost immediately. The room seemed to spin around him. One pint, then another. His vision started to blur at the edges. That is enough, Sophie said. Any more, and I will be treating you instead of her. Danny nodded weakly and leaned against the wall. He watched as Sophie monitored her patient. Seconds passed. Then a minute. The patterns of light beneath the woman's skin, which had been fading, began to glow brighter. It is working, Sophie whispered. Her body is accepting the blood. She's stabilizing. Danny let out a breath he did not know he had been holding. They carried the woman back to the shuttle. Danny could barely walk, but he refused to be carried himself. His team supported him on both sides as they made their way through the dead ship. Back on the horizon's edge, Sophie took her patient directly to the medical bay. Danny was ordered to rest, but he stood outside the door for a long time. Watching through the window. Captain Bennett found him there an hour later. You look terrible, she said. I have been told. Sophie says the woman will live. Because of you. Danny shrugged. Anyone would have done the same. Bennett studied him for a moment. No, they would not have. Most people would have waited, asked more questions, worried about the risk. You just acted. She was dying. Yes, and now she's not. Bennett paused. Sophie also told me something else. That woman is not just any Etherin. The markings on her skin, the items in her chamber. She's royalty, Danny. You just saved the life of an Etherin princess. Danny stared at her. Then he looked through the window at the woman lying in the medical bed. Her eyes were still closed, but her chest rose and fell with steady breaths. The light beneath her skin pulsed gently, like a heartbeat. A princess. He had given his blood to a princess, not as if she could feel his gaze. The woman's eyes opened. They were the color of liquid gold, and they found him immediately through the glass. She looked at him with an expression he could not read. Shock, perhaps, confusion, and something else underneath. Something that made Danny feel like his life had just changed in ways he could not yet understand. He was right. Her name was Valis Soren, and she would not leave him alone. Danny first noticed it during breakfast, 3 days after the rescue. He was sitting in the mess hall with his food when he felt someone watching him. He looked up and there she was, standing near the door, her golden eyes fixed on him. He nodded politely and went back to eating. When he looked up again 5 minutes later, she was still there, still watching. Good morning, he said finally. Would you like to sit down? Valith walked over and sat across from him. She moved with a grace that made every human on the ship look clumsy by comparison. Her silver-blue skin caught the light in strange ways, and the patterns beneath it shifted like clouds. "You are Daniel Cole," she said. Her voice was soft but clear. "Danny. Most people call me Danny. Danny." She said the name carefully, as if tasting it. "You are the one who gave me blood." "That is right. Why?" Danny paused with his fork halfway to his mouth. "Why what? Why did you give me your blood? You did not know me. You did not owe me anything. You weakened yourself, put yourself in danger for a stranger. Why?" Danny set down his fork. It was a simple question, but somehow it felt like the most important question anyone had ever asked him. "Because you were dying," he said, "and I could help. That is all." Valith stared at him for a long moment. Then she nodded once and stood up. "I understand." She walked away, and Danny thought that was the end of it. He was wrong. That afternoon, he went to the gym for his daily workout. Valith was there, sitting on a bench, watching him. When he went to the observation deck after dinner, she was there too, standing by the window, looking at the stars. When he walked to his quarters to sleep, he found her waiting in the corridor outside his door. "Princess," he said, trying to keep his voice calm, "is there something you need?" "No." "Then why are you following me?" She tilted her head slightly, as if confused by the question. "Where else would I be?" The next morning, Danny went to Captain Bennett. "She follows me everywhere," he said. "I turn around, and she is there. I go to the bathroom, and she waits outside. It is strange." Bennett sighed and rubbed her forehead. "I was hoping she would explain it to you herself. But it seems I need to have a conversation with you about Etheran culture." She pulled up files on her computer and turned the screen so Danny could see. Among the Etherans, blood is sacred. It carries their essence, their identity. To give blood to another is the most intimate act possible in their society. It is never done, not even between family members. But Sophie said it was the only way to save her. "I know, and you did the right thing. But you need to understand what it means to Valith." Bennett pointed to a section of text on the screen. "There is a concept in their culture called Valithar. It translates roughly to the blood debt. When someone saves another's life through the sharing of blood, a bond is created. The one who was saved believes their life now belongs to the one who saved them." Danny felt cold. "Belongs to them? Like property?" "Not exactly. It is more like a sacred duty. Valith believes she must stay by your side, protect you, serve you, until she can repay the debt in equal measure. And since you gave her your life, the only way to repay that debt is to give you her life in return. That is insane. It is her culture. To her, it makes perfect sense." Danny stood up and paced the small office. "I did not ask for this. I just wanted to save her life. I do not want her to feel like she owes me anything." "Then tell her that." So he did. He found Violet on the observation deck, her favorite place on the ship. She stood with her hands clasped behind her back, watching the stars drift past. "Princess," he began. "Violet," she corrected. "You have given me your blood. You may use my name, Valith." He took a deep breath. "I need to talk to you about this Valithar thing." She turned to face him, her expression calm. "Yes, I do not want it. I do not want you to feel like you owe me something. I saved your life because it was the right thing to do, not because I wanted anything in return. So the debt is already paid, okay? You do not need to follow me around anymore." Vila's eyes widened. For the first time since he had met her, she looked truly shocked. "You wish to release me from the Valithar?" "Yes." "You wish to reject my bond?" Yes. I mean, not reject you personally. But do you understand what you were saying?" Her voice had changed. There was pain in it now, and something like anger. To dismiss the Velither is the greatest insult in my culture. It says that my life is worth nothing. It says that my blood, my essence, my very being has no value to you. You would shame me before my ancestors and every Etheran who has ever lived. Danny held up his hands. "That is not what I meant." "Then what did you mean?" "I meant that I do not own you. You are a person, a princess, not a thing to be claimed. You should be free to live your own life." Valeth was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was softer. "Among my people, freedom without purpose is emptiness. I was dying, Danny. My blood was leaving my body, and with it went my future, my hopes, my dreams. Everything I was and everything I could have been was draining onto that floor. And then you gave me life. You filled me with your essence. You made me whole again." She stepped closer to him. "I do not follow you because I am forced to. I follow you because you are the reason I am still alive. My heart beats with blood that came from your veins. How can I leave your side when part of you is inside me?" Danny did not know what to say. "I see now that humans do not understand these things," Valeth continued. "Your species is young. You have not yet learned the weight of blood. But I will teach you. I will stay by your side, and I will show you what the Velither truly means. Not as a burden, but as a gift." She reached out and placed her hand over his heart. "You gave me life, Danny Cole, and I will spend the rest of mine proving that your gift was not wasted." Danny looked into her golden eyes and saw something he had not noticed before. Behind the calm exterior, behind the alien grace and ancient traditions, there was curiosity. She was watching him not just out of duty, but because she wanted to understand him. She wanted to know what kind of creature would give his blood to a stranger and ask for nothing in return. And Danny realized, with a mixture of fear and wonder, that he wanted to understand her too. "Okay," he said quietly. "Okay, but if we are going to do this, we do it as equals. Not master and servant. Not savior and saved. Just two people trying to figure this out together." Valeth smiled. It was the first time he had seen her smile. "Agreed," she said. "Partners." And standing there in the starlight, with her hands still over his heart, Danny had the strange feeling that this was just the beginning.